Everybody, and welcome to the Design Advisory Panel meeting for September 26th. And you've all received an agenda. Has anybody got any additions or changes to that agenda? Okay, not seeing if somebody could have a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Kevin, a seconder. Jonathan, all in favor? Great, okay. And we don't have any minutes to go over this evening, so that'll shorten things a bit. And we only have one presentation. Then that's property on Chapel Street, and planner Peyton Carter will introduce the project. So go ahead, Peyton.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, everybody. Development permit application DP 1350 is for a 6-story multifamily residential development with 156 apartment units and 6 townhouse units, with a combined total of 162 units intended to include both rental and market housing. The site is located at a prominent site in downtown Nanaimo, located at the intersection of Skinner Street and Chapel Street. It's zoned Chapel Front DT5 and is designated as primary urban center in city plan. This property currently contains a parkade, which will be removed if this development permit proceeds. The subject property falls within Development Permit Area 8, Form and Character, and as such, the General Development Permit Area Design Guidelines apply, as well as the Downtown Urban Design Guidelines. At this time, there are no variances proposed for this development, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you, Peyton. Who's presenting this evening?
There will be a couple of us. I will present the architectural form and character, but we have Greg from Primex who will be doing a quick introduction, and we have our landscape architect and civil consultant on the call as well to answer any questions regarding their scopes of work.
Great. Okay. Well, anytime you're ready, you can share your screen and go ahead.
Maria,
all right.
I have a question for Peyton, if that's okay.
Do you want to wait till after the presentation, or usually I ask for that after the applicant's presented? Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so while I'm sharing my screen here, Greg, do you want to just kick us off with a little intro?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name is Greg Mitchell. I'm the Senior Development Manager and Senior Urban Planner with Primex Investments. Primex is a family-owned real estate company. Our bread and butter is the construction and operation of rental housing. This will be our second DP on this site. We had an earlier DP that was a 6-story rental plus a 6-story strata building. As we got into the nuts and bolts, the strata did not make sense. We had to go back to the start. So my thanks to Peyton and the City of Nanaimo team who've been working with us on this reapplication of the DP under the current zoning. So internally at Primex and at DHK, we refer to this as Chapel 3.0 because this is our second go around plus the previous owner's first go around. So in this case, we're now in a 6-story multifamily rental building with a central core, recognizing that there's a live work component facing Chapel. And also recognizing that there's some unique characteristics down the backside, down Skinner. So we've worked with DHK to really kind of define that. Our intent is to retain this as a rental asset within our company. We build, own with that intent. And indeed, we have a few projects underway in Nanaimo, around North Nanaimo Mall, as well as what we call 340 Campbell. So we are growing our presence in Nanaimo to more than 500 units in the next couple of years. And we're excited to bring this one forward as well. So I'll throw it to Glenn for the design discussion. And I obviously will be here, and I look forward to answering any questions that come up through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. So I'm sure, as most people know, this is the site is currently occupied by a relatively underutilized concrete parking structure. It's been there for quite some time, and we have been focused in the downtown area as architects for some years now. The neighboring property is a project that we completed a couple of years ago. It was a great opportunity to work with a developer to generate some market housing in these unique residual sites. This has been an opportunity for us to continue that design thesis along Chapel Street and essentially complete that the Chapel Street on at least the sort of the one side. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of replace a relatively underutilized part of the downtown with something that we know will inject 162 potential families into the downtown core, which I think will be a massive benefit to the socio-economic culture of our inner town, and we look forward to seeing this sort of this realized. So we have been working with all of the setbacks within the downtown zone and the DT5. We've sort of acknowledged a number of the guidelines that were stipulated in that downtown development guideline that was drafted several years ago. And as Peyton had mentioned, we have a total of 162 units ranging in the format of 28 studio units, 55 one-bedroom units, 39 one-bedroom and den, and we have 5 one-bedroom live-work style units that are facing Chapel Street, and we have one-bed loft-style homes that are facing and fronting out onto Skinner Street. Then we have 24 two-bedroom units, and we have 5 two-bedroom and den units. So a pretty varied range of unit types that we hope will sort of continue to kind of just cross-pollinate that range of families and occupants in the building. We've got parking the required parking for that scale of a project is 94 stalls in the downtown zone. And we're including visitor parking and the required electric vehicle parking as well. We also have short-term parking for bicycles, and we have long-term secured parking in the parkade as well. So that's kind of the big overview. I'll just scan through here. So our sort of streetscape and context and the neighborhood that we're building in on the page, sort of left side from north to south, running down Skinner Street, gives you an idea of the existing urban fabric with Gina's Mexican colorful cafe at the top end of Skinner Street, with some other restaurant and businesses as the hill drops down to the south. You can see here there's sort of a couple of escarpment properties that are going to be quite challenging to build on if they can be built on at all. So there is that sort of cliff escarpment edge along this side of Skinner Street, and then there's a sort of a range of mid-low story commercial buildings that have been around for a while. This image at the bottom on the south is our neighboring Skinner Street side of the 91 Chapel Street residential project with its kind of connection to the street there. On the right hand side of the page, going from north to south, we've got the recently completed mixed-use residential building at the north end of Skinner, and then as we go down, the law courts are adjacent to that. We've got a couple of other street level parking with a range of commercial buildings that are kind of in and around that sort of older stock. Then we've got the St. Paul's Anglican Church with the beautiful addition that was completed there a couple of years ago. Some inspiring architecture there, and then the chapel front of 91 Chapel Street, which we completed 4 years ago, and then down the church and Skinner, or church and chapel, the sort of the nice stock of heritage buildings. So it's quite an eclectic mix of buildings that create our neighborhood. Just to the south of us is Commercial Street with all of its shops and restaurants and a sort of a host of amenities that would contribute to a sort of a lifestyle conducive of living in an urban area. Maffeo Sutton Park is just to the north, less than 5 minutes stroll from here. and access to the waterfront is again just to the east beyond Front Street. I'll just talk a little bit about our siting. We've got, so as mentioned, we have Chapel Street that runs in a sort of north-south direction, rising as we go further north to the top of the hill. Skinner Street dips down as you drive south. The north portion of Skinner Street is a two-way street, and the southern part of Skinner Street is a one-way street heading north, which then connects or intersects at Benson Street, which is a one-way street that takes you down. So it's an interesting kind of series of one-way connections around the building, with Skinner two-way portion connected to Chapel Street. So there are ways that we've been able to kind of strategically locate the entry to the parking so that we can take advantage of two-way driving to make vehicle access coming and going from the site utilize as much of the urban infrastructure as possible, as opposed to relying on over clustering on the existing one-way system. We have the main residential building sits as a 6-story building over a 2-story parkade. The parkade isn't visible from Chapel Street, but is at the lowest point on Skinner Street is a 2-story parkade, with the parkade entry at the lowest level, which is street level. The parking is hidden by this bank of 2-story loft-style one-bedroom units. There are 2 stories with little balconies and patios that connect directly to the street along Skinner in the southern part. North of the parkade entry, as we start rising up the steep hill, there is a series of water features and landscape features that help to screen the parking as it buries itself within the north end of the site. The north end of the property has some landscape design, which I'll leave for later on the presentation for our landscape architects to talk a bit more about, but that's a sort of a public zone on the north end. Our primary entry is mid-block on the building. We have between 91 Chapel Street and 77, we've been able to create a pedestrian access connecting Chapel Street to Skinner Street. It is a fairly significant grade change between Chapel and Skinner at that point. So we've kind of done our best to navigate that so that it is as accessible from a pedestrian perspective as we can make it. And then of course there's opportunity for us to program that up with amenity space in a park-like setting, and then also gives us an opportunity to concentrate some of the amenity program within our building to that sort of corner on Chapel Street, which we can sort of illustrate a little bit more. So the site has really started to inform how we plan, place, and place make the units within, and using this sort of the urban edges. Our landscape team have done a great job in sort of creating that extension of the architecture out into the semi-public spaces and the landscape zones, and then out to the street. We've done our best to connect the public sidewalks with access points to the live-work units, and we can talk a little about that. This is just a quick snapshot of the color range, illustrates the variety of homes. So they're interdispersed within the plan, using the scale of each of the units to kind of generate a platform for creating articulation on the facades and forming character on the facades. So moving units around to kind of create an architectural opportunity on the exterior. The little diagram on the top left is our rooftop amenity on the very north, which has an overlook down into the north end parklet. I've noticed, I've mentioned here, we have our primary entryway with double height spaces, lobby areas, meal and post delivery, and a sort of a connection point for residential occupants. And then, as mentioned, we have our amenity gym space, which is a double height mezzanine area at the corner, on the southeast corner, which is at that entry to the pedestrian connection between Chapel and Skinner. This is a typical floor plate layout, and then this sort of illustrates our ground floor or our street-orientated floor along Chapel, where we've got the 5 live work type units that have direct access out onto a little plaza, which then connects to the sidewalk on Chapel Street. So trying to extend the sort of the semi-commercial residential connectivity at street level as we travel up up Chapel Street. The roof of the 2-story loft homes is at that same level. But then, as I mentioned, that's 2 stories above Skinner Street, and the loft homes hide the 2-story parkade with a sort of an interesting fabric along Skinner Street. As I mentioned, at the Skinner Street level, we enter in at the lowest part of the parkade. The parkade comes down and then ramps up, brings you up to the upper part of the parkade. So you can see all of our unit storage, bike storage, long-term bike storage, secure storage, garbage is all located here. We do have a single spot by the parkade entry for a dedicated car share program that if Greg wants to kind of speak into that a little bit, or if you have any questions, Greg can answer that. But the intent is that we would have a car sharing program on site for residents. Our illustrations here are not quite at the rendered level that we normally kind of produce for form and character, but this being our sort of third go around, we decided that it would to kind of really get an understanding of the size of the building, the scale of the building within the urban fabric. We geo-located it within Google Earth, so this is kind of a 3D buildings turned on image of the building, a couple of views from the west side as we sort of look over the terminal, and then a couple of other views from a few other vistas. We can generate a sort of a number of views and vistas from our Google Earth model, which is located in Google Earth right now. But I think our view analysis just sort of illustrates that the existing 91 Chapel Street building sits here, and our building kind of tucks in beside it with the gap. The parklet is up, sort of hidden behind the top of the knoll. The townhouse or the lot-style townhomes that are on Skinner Street are at the lowest level, and then our 6-story building goes up above that. That is sort of identified here, and then a sort of a view from that one of those major road connections in the city gives you a sense of how the building is sort of, while nestled on the top of the escarpment, is actually relatively tucked in behind some of the other buildings that are pre-existing. As far as materials go, we've got a sort of a clean and simple refined panel system in panel using color to identify and sort of play with those articulations that we've created on the facade through the unit types. We've identified a sort of a strong sort of horizontal element here, which reads the live work along Chapel Street, and then using the decks and the unit types to kind of create that articulation of form and character vertically and horizontally. So a simple palette of muted panel colors, and then using the wood look metal to identify the primary entry. We've got wood look metal blades or louvers that create more of an architectural element along the street, at the street and at the human scale, at the pedestrian scale along the street. We've got some storefront here that basically creates that shift between a typical residential unit and the street-orientated ones along Chapel Street, and then our glass guardrails. So glass and aluminium, cast in place concrete where it's exposed. We're going to sack the finish where we need to hide that concrete behind insulated panels. Then we've got our dark concrete insulated panels, all kind of used to help the efficiency of our building. The streetscape, just a quick illustration of how we've continued the inspiration of 91 Chapel Street with using the materials to create horizontality and verticality through a form. We've done the same thing. There is a sort of a strong linear expression of horizontal decks, and where the building facades pop forward, we've identified those with a material change that creates that stacking of building blocks along the Skinner Street. You can see here, this is the little block of street-orientated units on Skinner Street. Our parkade entry tucked under here, and then the stepping of our water features and the as much of the parkade hidden behind and buried into the ground as possible. Same kind of idea of horizontal elements that kind of speak a bit of a language back to the facade at 91 Chapel Street, where we want to continue the commercial look and feel of the live work units on 91 Chapel. We've done the same thing with our 2-story amenity with eyes into that entry for the pedestrian connection, and then taller units and a unique unit condition happening at street level. And then where the units are along the top end of Chapel Street, we've created private patios at street level so that there's a good separation at an urban scale between a private patio at that ground level and then the sidewalk, because the sidewalk ends up being higher than the finished floor. Moving on, this is just sort of our, in your design packet, you can see how we've distributed the material choices and selections to sort of work with the form and character of the building, taking a moment to kind of create that street presence along the lower part of Chapel Street, identifying the primary entry of the building with a porte-cochere and then a vertical material choice that runs up to kind of break the building into a sort of a north and a south, with the primary entry in the middle. And then where we step down to kind of compress the scale a little bit at the north end of the project, we have extended some pretty generous decks off of those north-facing units, and also located the pavilion and rooftop amenity on the roof of that north end, so that people can get up onto the roof, have pretty commanding views of Benson and sunsets, and then also have that visual connection from the rooftop amenity down to the little park area at the very north tip of the project. I think we kind of expressed the sort of form and character of the 2-story element as it connects and interfaces with Skinner Street, with individual front doors and little patios and garden spaces along Skinner Street. These units all have secure underground parking, and they also have connectivity to the primary entryway, the elevator core, and also their own corridor to enter into the units from the back. So it's while they're detached from the main building, an occupant has access to all of those other amenities without having to leave their home and walk around in the rain or anything. So they're still fully integrated, and it's a great opportunity for us to hide the parkade that's tucked into the hillside. A couple of views. This is our Skinner Street. You can sort of see where the articulation of bringing building facades forward and back gives us an opportunity to play with the materials. This is the double height area, which is the amenity space, gymnasium and the mezzanine above, and then that's the start of that walkway down to Skinner Street. We've taken an opportunity to pop windows into the exit stairs so that there's always some movement. It's putting natural light into exit stairs, I like to think, is an opportunity to promote people to walk rather than rely on elevators. And if we're doing that, then it's a good opportunity to have people's a quick visual out to the street for people to wayfind, and also for that sort of sense of security that there are other people looking out onto the street. The porte cochere of the primary entry signifies a sort of a significant entry point for the entire project. And then the pavilion and rooftop amenity at the far north end. So kind of decanting some of those amenity spaces around and on top and at key points in the project to contribute to that sort of culture of street connectivity and the pedestrian scale as much as we can around the building and the topography that we're dealing with. Quick illustration of how the landscape is stepping with the sidewalk as it dips pretty aggressively down that north end of Skinner. Our entry point, our enclosure for garbage pickup and all the rest of it, the townhouses, and then that's the gable end and a peekaboo view into the courtyard of 91 Chapel Street to the south. This sort of gives you a bit of a view into the design that we're hoping to create for those street-orientated units along Skinner, and then the placeholder for our landscape design and the pedestrian connectivity between Chapel and Skinner Street. And then again, this sort of last image just sort of hones in a little bit on some of those features of the at street level where we've created planted areas, plaza spaces, an opportunity for people to have a home-based business that would open out onto the street where a client or a customer could come in. It's also a residential unit, so in the same way that we kind of tried to work the opportunity of the street is what we've been doing between here up to the entryway. This is just another shot showing how we've kind of created that long horizontal element terminated at the primary entry off of Chapel. This is a bit of just a zoom in on the opportunity that we want to express the pedestrian connectivity and the sort of the park environment and the idea that there is in a tight compressed urban site where we've been able to carve out some public interface and amenity space, and then the sort of the compressed north end with the material change again that reflects this overlook into the north end parklet and the guardrail and the rooftop amenity for residents to be able to get out there, congregate, and then also have that take advantage of the views from that point and the overlook down into the park. So that's a quick rattle through the form and character and the design, some of the sort of backstory of how we kind of created this form and character, and then I will pass it over to our landscape design team.
Thanks a lot, Glenn. I'm going to let Kai. Kai's going to take you through the landscape design, and if there's any other comments, I might chip in a little bit. But Kai, take it away, please.
Got it. Thanks for everyone for joining us this evening. For the landscape design, I think Ryan did a really good job covering the overall design. Just going to the nitty-gritty of kind of our process and the purposes of our design here. So if we start from just the corner of Chapel and Skinner on the north end there is a major crosswalk along Chapel Street. So we want to make that connection to the outdoor amenity area there with some tiered concrete paving, make it a bit more interesting, kind of reflect the architecture a little bit. Then that is also accessible going into Skinner Street. And just off of that, we have a dog park. It's not too big. It's mostly for the residents to take the dog for a quick washroom break or whatnot. And just going down Chapel Street there, you can see that we have some retaining walls along the building. That's because the sidewalk is actually slightly higher than the finished floor elevation. So we wanted to kind of retain that edge and capture that water that's going on the site and just swale, having I wouldn't call it swale, maybe a little ditch there, going down Chapel, and all of that excess water would be captured near the entry, and we have a drain there to capture that. Going down slightly bit more, we have some bike rack, and along the frontage of, I guess, South Chapel Street there, we have retaining walls that are, it's multi-purpose. One, for enough soil volume for the trees, and two, because we do have a wide sidewalk, it's a 3-meter sidewalk. We wanted to give resting areas for people walking along that street. So the benches that you can see there are actually placed roughly around 450 millimeters high. And I keep going down a little bit more. We have the gym, and just right beside that, we wanted to locate some bike stalls for anyone that potentially bike to the gym. We've got a planter coming out of the staircase there, just to add a bit more green into the hardscape. And going down west there, all of that is less than, I believe, 5%, and just connecting to Skinner Street with stairs. And we've also got accessible ramp going around that, with some landscaping. And there's also a small gathering area with benches and chairs for the residents or for anyone that's walking in the area. We didn't want to make it too big of a gathering space. And the rain garden in the blue hatch there would capture most of the stormwater coming from the roofs of the south building there. So we would have to figure out a way to pipe from the building towards our rain garden, which would slow down a 2-year storm. And that would actually, all of the blue hatches you see are rain gardens, so that would be capturing the water, as I mentioned, from the south, and then along, and that would eventually lead pipe to a municipal storm. And then just along the boulevard there, that would capture the water from just the road and sidewalk, same treatment to your storm. And going up Skinner, we've got the tiered rain gardens there. That would capture water from the north building side. And so from the high end on the left side there, that would tear down and eventually go to the overflow drain, and eventually also go to a municipal drain there. That covers the forming character of landscape. Scott, do you want to speak to the planting plan there?
Yeah, thanks, Kai. The landscape planting, we're looking at a mix of site adaptive plant material and native plant material that's suitable to the site conditions, whether it's full sun or shaded, or in rain garden settings, sort of something that's wet in the winter and drier in the summertime. We've really tried to emphasize that that northern tip of the site with a lot of variety in plant material and color, but also texture. There's the focal tree at that point is a Galaxy magnolia, which at maturity will become about a 40-foot high, 25-foot wide tree that will have spectacular flowers in sort of May, early June, and just a really nice tree form that we're going to light with lighting that actually will have some potential for, we can actually change colors and program that. So we're trying to really animate that space, not just in the daytime, but at nighttime as well, and make that tree a real focal point. A lot of the other planting is trying to, create a bit of separation between the public and the private realm for the residents when we're talking about, between patio spaces and sidewalk spaces. And then just integrating color and different textures along that way. Rain garden plantings, the sort of the light blue color. Again, that's going to be plant material like that we might see, like we're using some native sedges and some juncus and plants that are adapted to that wetter environment during those winter months, but also doesn't need a lot of water in the summertime. So it's quite a flexible planting palette there, and I think something that will, there's a bit of variety around the site. So as you move around the site, you're going to see differences in that planting, which I think will help emphasize those spaces a little bit more as well. And I'm not sure if we've got another slide or not, but I can speak a little bit to the sections as well. Again, we've got the section above, which is sort of that terrace landscape coming down Skinner. And we've got some pretty significant soil volumes, so we anticipate, our trees will grow quite well in that setting and quite quickly. So as they're showing, creating a nice screen between the streetscape and the building and the bit of the exposed parkade that we do see. And the lower section, that's the section that just shows between Skinner and then sort of going up the landscape towards the building, and it nips the ramp there at the you can kind of see the two edges of the ramp. It's if we'd pulled the section closer towards you, you'd see a bit more of an elevation change of how that ramp works. That's sort of clipped right at the end, but there's grade change there, but it's quite a nice walkway, and I think making it an accessible path between the two streets, I think, is a big improvement and a nice way to move between those spaces. There's one more there, please.
That's
That our last one.
That's it.
All right. Well, I'll give it back to you then, Glenn. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. I know that Drew is with us from Newcastle. I've been doing our civil. It's Drew, is there anything that you want to kind of conclude with there? I know that it's not the most exciting civil scope of work, but it's always good to know what we're up to so we can comment on it.
Yeah, for sure. I can just chime in a little bit on a few things that Kai and Scott mentioned. A lot of the time we kind of focus on the stormwater for these design advisory panels. One other thing to note is we are continuing the streetscape that has been kind of progressing down Chapel with what was done with Studio NA, and then we also worked on that 91 Chapel Street with Glenn. So along the Chapel Street, there will be a continuation of that large format sidewalk to promote, connectivity through the area. On the stormwater front, like Kai mentioned, we are going to be capturing some of the runoff from the road and focusing that into some rain gardens. The goal here on this site is going to be more on treatment rather than detention, because this is a site that does drain directly into the ocean. And so as for the MOESS, it's a treatment, detention isn't as crucial. So these rain gardens are going to be, less focused on the volume of storage versus the ability to clean up that water before it gets discharged into the municipal storm sewer. So, complete frontage works all the way around. So it'll be a nice, nice way to kind of finish off that portion of the block. There's a lack of ability to kind of make your way down Skinner Street conveniently right now, so this will be a nice addition to that connectivity and walkability in the area. That's about it from the civil perspective. The rest of our stuff is underground and less exciting. So less exciting to most people. I love it.
Well, I appreciate it. So I think that sort of gives you the overview. We want to obviously have time for comments, feedback, and we'll hand it back to the panel for some deliberation.
Great. Thanks, guys. Okay, maybe you can just stop sharing your screen. That'll help me. Thanks. Okay, so panel, before we get going on giving your comments back on this very interesting project here, does anybody have any questions of staff? Nathan, do you still have a question? You need to unmute.
Madam Chair, no, Greg answered the question, so thank you.
You're good? Okay, anybody else have a question for staff? No? Okay, with that said, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead with Kevin, because Kevin and I were probably, and maybe Jonathan, were two of this panel members who saw the previous version of this place. I've been troubling myself trying to remember exactly what it was like and what you've changed, but maybe I'll let Kevin go ahead with that, because he might have a better memory of it than I do.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I saw the previous two, including the 26-story high-rise that was proposed for this site. And the previous application was very similar to this. I was really hoping it was going to proceed. I really liked it. Thank you, Glenn, and your team for the presentation. All in all, the form and character of the building, how you utilize the site, the articulation and the varying of the parapets and stuff. You've done a good job to articulate the building on the site. I do have some concerns or recommendations. One is, I think a building of this size deserves a solid base to the building. The use of either brick or stone on the first story to create a solid base for the building would help with the scope and size of the building. The townhomes, even though I kind of like the simple form and character of the outside of them, I think I would like to see them further enhanced, either through materials or colors. I think that would really help. The north corner on the previous applications had a rental unit on the first floor, and then the patio related to that unit. I liked that idea, and I would like to and I'm not sure if you want to comment after this, but to take out the first and second story units and create like a unit that can be used for a coffee shop, where you can have an outdoor patio that can run right out to the corner. I think that would be really nice in that area, because I don't think there's really any coffee shops around closely around that area. And did you consider that, Glenn?
Well, we were in sort of bringing the building together in this version. We wanted to kind of bring I think in the previous one we had the amenity room or the club room on that lower floor, which had patio, which would then connect up to the park space. We've kind of taken that program and pulled it to the other end, where it's sitting on the corner of Chapel Street. That's, a kind of a multifolded decision. One being there is a relatively large volume of space between the parkade and the first level of the residential units. And we wanted to continue to kind of drop the floor level of the live-work townhomes to as closely and as sort of accessibly meet the Chapel Street sidewalk as it comes down the hill. So those units actually get larger floor heights, which, you know, by virtue just sort of gave us the idea of, well, let's continue these as live work style with the double height space at the end being the a good spot for the gym and animating the entryway into the park or into the pedestrian connection. So yeah, I mean, there's only so much amenity space that we can kind of program into this. But I understand that.
I'm thinking more of a rental unit, and because I find the corner with it sort of having it stacked residential units, even though it gets thinner there, I find that part of the building on the weak side, and I think as people drive up the street and come to that corner, I think by adding something like a rental unit and taking a couple stories out and doing some sort of feature there, I think that might help enhance that corner. But aside from that, the only other comment I have is the balconies, because there's so many of them, are very dominant. And because of that, I think you might want to look at to draw attention away from those balconies, maybe looking at sections of the facade using different textures and maybe contrasting brighter colors in sections to draw your attention away. Because I just look at the facades and there's every unit wants to have and needs to have a balcony, and it just becomes very dominant. So I would say maybe look at ways to add more texture and bright colors in different areas to draw the attention away from the balconies. So those are the four things. Other than that, I really hope this project proceeds. Good luck, and thank you for the presentation. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Nathan, do you want to go ahead?
There's the mic. Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you, team, for the presentation. It's very thorough, and I think that it's a fantastic project. So, but I do have criticism, Glenn. And by the way, good to see you again, Glenn.
You too.
The project's function is superb, and the logistics and the planning of it work extremely well. And I'd like to point out some of the positives here in terms of the form and character. The relationships of the program work extremely well. So you've got small units, two side by side, then a large unit, and that actually starts to articulate the form. So the form and character, the massing, is actually quite real at that level. It relates to the function. I think those are very strong moves, and they work extremely well. So they're not a cosmetic strategy to camouflage things. So I think that those kind of things are working extremely well. The program is working well with the site, the combination of townhouses and units, and the general massing works very, very well. The project seems to me, though, and incidentally, on the positive side, the natural light that Glenn mentioned, interior to the lobby plus the stairs, those are ideal. And the rainwater ideas that the landscapers were talking about were actually working really well as well. So it's really about a form and character issue in an iconic site to me. And it's a matter of subtleties. The project the Nanaimo needs this badly. It needs to be here, and it's just about tweaks, I think. When you look at the facades, especially the elevations, looking at it from down below, it looks dark and drab, and the word penitentiary just popped into my mind. It doesn't need to be. And I think Kevin's comments about the balconies versus offsetting things are actually good comments. And I would point out to you that the balconies need to be there. The massing that you've brought out, the solid pieces, the punch window look that break it up are actually fantastic strategies. They just might need more punch, more color, or more some kind of contrast. When I look down that facade, it's just a lot of darkness, a lot of dark, and the colors the tones are all very similar. So I think that could, there's got to be some color separation within the massing that you've done. And to address the idea, and I think back to Kevin's comments, I think that strategy would pull your eye from the balconies into these form pieces, which I think could use some life. The way the building meets the street, I appreciate one of my comments was I couldn't understand how Chapel side works on the left side of the entry, but you explained that well, Glenn. Thank you. On the right side of the entry, the units are all now below grade as you work toward the corner, and that's problematic. To me, the obvious solution would be to split the building and raise that piece from the lobby up. I mean, we've done that a lot on long buildings, and I think that it could work. You have a firewall there, but you can use ramps in there, so that might be a consideration, just to raise, as you're looking at Chapel, the right side of the building up to suit the grades a bit better and raise the corridors. So I don't, maybe that's whether you've considered that or not. I think that would solve the depression of the units into the grade there, where they really need to have a street interface. So that was the one issue. The comment that was about the corner, I think, is a good one. The design guidelines talk distinctively about landmark on that corner, and I don't think you need to change the program. I mean, the units are there; they work well. There's a fine tuning of that. You have decks and columns. The columns need to be there to support the decks, but they're also a form element. So maybe there must be a way to gesture to a more iconic corner just for the program you have. There's a sketch right in the design guidelines that shows that corner by Ambrosio, and Glenn, I'm sure you've seen that. And there's ways to do that. I mean, there's very simple ways to take the function that you've used, balcony and column, and give it some expression. And I think whether it becomes more mass, whatever it does, it can claim iconicness on a corner that kind of wants it. So that would be my comment. I think that corner could use a lot more thought. The townhouse units are down the bottom. I also agree with Kevin's comments about they're kind of dwarfed in the situation, and you picked a livelier color. The design guidelines do talk about authenticity of materials very distinctly, and you're choosing a fake wood panel. And I don't know that that's the best strategy. It could use more robust and more livelier color. I mean, obviously brick is a light color brick there would be great. There's costs there, but maybe consider those forms as something with a little bit more durability there and a little bit more life and color. So all in all, I think it's really good. It just needs, I'm not sure how to describe this. The fine tune of the pieces seems too many, and there seems to be almost, you want to step back out and think about it as a form element a bit, an iconic form element in the landscape of a very, very important site on the city, and maybe reflect on what this building says about Nanaimo. I mean, its function, its form expression is a functional expression, which is typical for a residential thing. This site has an interesting shape, so the function forms to the shape. But if this was a square site, would you have just repeated the same thing? Maybe. Fortunately, it's a curved site, a pinchy site, so it changes the form. But beyond that, what's this saying about Nanaimo? When I drive by this thing, there must be something. There's a lot of fantastic projects in town that really look at the vernacularness of the histories of Nanaimo and what it means to build on an iconic site in the on somewhat of an island in downtown that everybody's going to see. So I think maybe that's a question to Glenn. What do you see this as representing Nanaimo versus Vancouver or Parksville, or like why would this be like it is because it's here in terms of the form and character? And it's a question, and maybe you have an answer to that. But that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. And let's see, Harry, would you like to go ahead?
Hey, that was a great presentation. Yeah, my concerns was it looked very, very bland. Like when you look at it, just a whole bunch of gray. So Kevin and Nathan like basically hit the nail on the head there with some color, for sure. That north end too, it needs some pizzazz. It's as it is, you see that on the highway driving by. It's like the first thing you're going to see when you see this building, and I don't know, maybe a sloped rooftop canopy type thing, or where the patio is. Yeah. Other than that, and the car sharing, it's fantastic. I know we have the bike sharing in town now. It'd be cool if we could get a dedicated parking spot for the building for the bikes. But yeah, that's my input for this project. It's pretty cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harry. Hector, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you go ahead if you like.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Glenn, for the presentation. Yeah, I think the comments from Nathan are quite good. I feel like it really gives like a monolithic appearance. I think I know that there is like some play with the balconies, but I think in general, I think there's just too much repetitions. The facade treatment, I think it's more material changes. I would say a little bit more of articulation. Looking again at the downtown kind of design guidelines, there was kind of like this idea of this pedestrian street in like kind of in the middle of the building right now, where is the lobby and the elevator core. Like if you see the design guidelines, that was going to be kind of that pedestrian connection that right now the project is on the south. And I really don't like that connection on the south, because Chapel's the other building from DHK, Chapel, I think is 91. It's just right there. So basically you have like kind of two large building with like a 10 feet separation. And as everyone here knows, there's like a big at-risk population in downtown, and all these kind of little corridors are the perfect spaces to be kind of insecure spaces. So I'm not a big fan of that connection. I think in terms of landscape, it's good. I think all these rain gardens. I don't really feel that that little dog enclosure space is needed. Being so close to downtown to many public parks, I don't think you need this tiny dog enclosure. Again, I feel it's just more a risk than an asset. And again, I agree. Like if we look at Skinner and Chapel, we have the GNL building that is like kind of the biggest landmark in downtown. And that is kind of the same situation, right? It's like a corner lot, and it's a landmark. And then on this side, on at least on this project, on the north corner, again, it just seems too bland. And I think the owner and the architect, they need to look for something a little bit more prominent there. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Hector. Angie, would you like to go?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've got a few comments, but overall, just great presentation by all the parties and lots of detail. And I really, it was really valuable to have the photos and the landscape plans to really get a sense of what the space might look like. Yeah, I guess I agree with everybody else that I think this is a really iconic corner in Nanaimo, and yeah, it's exciting to see something new that's, you know, regardless of what's put there, it's gonna add value. And there's certainly a lot of great things about this development here that would add value, not just in much needed, you know, residential space in the city, but also just in terms of improving the feel of that area of town and creating some more use there. I think I really liked the distinct entrance on Chapel Street. I think that's kind of pulled out really well, clear to see. And I really like, yeah, the fins and how they add some texture to the building as well. I do agree, you know, with a lot of the comments about just where this is such a large building, specifically for, you know, we're relatively small, you know, city, and this is a really prominently featured building, and so there's just a lot of mass, and so to find ways to kind of break that up and maybe add color or other features, particularly I would say on the west wall, as that's kind of more visible from so many different areas in the city. Some, you know, I don't know if there's an opportunity for maybe like living walls or some color there or some artwork, some different features to maybe create a bit of a, yeah, just a bit of a draw when you're, you know, driving through or walking through the city, and you see this building up on the hill. I also wondered maybe at that north corner if there was an opportunity there to, you know, create like some other comments as well about creating a bit of a more prominent feature there. And you know, one thought is with the GNL building just down the road, like, is there an opportunity to maybe have that corner rounded? My background's not architectural, so perhaps that doesn't make sense. But yeah, if there's an opportunity to maybe play off of some other buildings in town, maybe it's that GNL building or some other you know, prominent landmark that we could pull in there. I think that would really, yeah, really add value. Yeah, I think yeah, maybe just like some smaller thoughts. I wondered about if there was some wayfinding for that path between the buildings. If there's, you know, if that is a public path, maybe having some signage there to help tourists or, you know, people just not familiar with the development. And then also, yeah, I was just curious what the vision is for the work live spaces for the signage. If that would be something along that kind of horizontal band, or if that would hang down below.
I think for the most part we'd come up with a strategy for placing of signage. I don't really think that the horizontal band would be the kind of the place for it. If anything, it would be slightly more subtle, but you know, still appropriately scaled for the you know, the size of the units. I know next door at 91 Chapel Street, the approach there has been quite successful, where it's been door signage, some using the storefront to kind of put a logo on the big window and then and that kind of thing. So we haven't kind of finalized that, but yeah, there'll be a sort of a sign application that needs to go in, and I have no doubt that the Primix team will want to have a kind of a zone for the individuality, but a kind of a very consistent theme, so that yeah, but we'll get into the development of that as we go towards permitting processes.
Sounds good. I'm glad to hear. I like the big horizontal band there, and yeah, I think it would be nice to have kind of more subtle signage. So that's great to hear. Yeah, I love the idea. I don't know, you know, how practical it is, but I love the idea of having, you know, some sort of a coffee shop or some sort of a space where that amenity area could come out on the north end. I also think there's, you know, maybe a need for it in that particular area. So I think there'd be value there. And yeah, I think that's most of the comments that I had. There was one where the bike racks are placed on, I believe it's on the Chapel Road side. There looked like maybe there would be, some, I don't know, but the clearances around it at that entrance, it looked a little bit tight. So maybe that's one thing just to consider is, if there's an opportunity to have a bit more room for, larger bikes that might impede the access paths there. And then, yeah, I think overall, it is really exciting to see something in this area. I see how it's, it kind of ties into that adjacent building, but I think there's also an opportunity to create a more distinct building from 91 and to kind of have this one be a bit unique and iconic. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how it shapes up. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. And who do we have left? Oh, Jonathan and Hillary. You go ahead, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks to the team for the presentation. It was very thorough. I'll just start off with some comments about the site design. I'm wondering at the north end of the building, I saw the planting plan, and I'm worried maybe there could be some people trying to shortcut between the dog area and the building. I'm not sure exactly what the plant material was there. I think there was some of the plants called out. I didn't notice them on that key on the list, so I wasn't sure what those were, but maybe just think about the potential for people to try to cut through there just so they don't have to go all the way up to the corner. And maybe that's just something to do with how the dog area is configured or the plant material that's in there. I'm a little unsure about kind of designating the North Plaza as having the smoking area, just because, in a building with 126 units, that's a lot of people there. So there's probably going to be people smoking there at all hours of the day. So it's going to probably be an unpleasant place for anyone who doesn't like smoking to be that plaza. So
can I answer that particular issue? There's actually an insurance requirement that we provide a dedicated smoking area associated with rental projects.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that maybe that location, having the smoking area in the main public plaza might not be the best spot for it. Just because with that many people, it's probably going to be smoky at all hours of the day. And yeah, so I guess Kevin's idea about potentially animating that area with a cafe, and that plaza is kind of the public extension of that cafe area, could make it something more pleasant for everyone, not just the smokers. The PMT location, it looked like the apron kind of extended into the sidewalk. I'm not sure what the material is on that, but I guess just consider what that PMT is going to look like. Is there some sort of graphic wrap over it, some sort of screening done on that? For the south side of the building, where we have the pedestrian connection, I'm just wondering from a SEPTED perspective, it is a bit of a movement predictor area, so if anyone wanted to cause harm, they're going to know exactly where people are going to be walking there. It's a narrow area, so it's really important to minimize hiding places and to have it well lit and natural surveillance. And I noticed the south elevation of that building doesn't really have any windows overlooking that walkway, so there's really no natural surveillance there. It could potentially be an unsafe place for people to be, so something to consider addressing. Yeah, so that's my site design comments. For the building, I'm not an architect, but just looking at the rendering on A004, that's the one on the Google Earth. It does, you know, right next to the building to the south, they kind of all sort of blend together as this big horizontal mass, and on the skyline above the rocky escarpment. So it's kind of like an iconic location, which is probably why the downtown design guidelines identified that site as a place for iconic building, just because it's sort of perched up on that escarpment. It's very visible. And yeah, so I think the comments from the architects on the panel about ways to make that more iconic or make that a bit less bland is very important for this site. I mean, we see a lot of developments proposed with gray, white, black, and some wood. That's, I guess, what's in style these days. But, you know, this kind of building, if we saw this proposed in North Nanaimo, or, you know, you see stuff like this in Surrey, Burnaby, Coquitlam, all over the place. I guess since it's supposed to be an iconic site, it's important to do something a bit different from what we see everywhere else. So yeah, those comments from the architect about ways to introduce color, or I guess it kind of reads to me as like this long horizontal uniform mass looking at it from the distance. So there's ways to break it up so it looks more like different vertical portions of the building. So it kind of, I guess from a distance, you might read it as separate buildings rather than this horizontal mass. Those are just the things that come to my mind, not being an architect myself. There was a staff comment about on top of the townhouses having, considering the treatment of the rooftop there, just because there's a lot of overlook from the units in this building, but also potentially other future tall buildings that might overlook those townhouses. So yeah, I agree with the staff comment there about decorative rooftop treatment or a green roof on top of the townhouses, just since they'll be visible to the units in the building and potentially other buildings nearby. But I like the programming of the building. The variety of unit types is really great to see. Having the live work, the townhouse, different sizes of apartment units, rental units. I think that's all really a good fit for downtown. I guess it would be nice if it had more of an iconic appearance to the building, given its location. Landscape comments. So the staff comment about ensuring the plaza areas and pedestrian network are well lit, I think will be very important for downtown location, especially with just the demographic of downtown and the populations of unhoused people. Having good lighting in there would be important for residents to feel safe in those public areas of the development. Staff comment about retaining walls. I guess a lot of them aren't too tall. So, and some of them have some shrub planting in front of them, which is good. But I guess on the South Chapel side, where I guess some of them are seating walls, maybe having it might be nice to have some texture on the concrete, something that makes it a little more interesting if it can't be screened. Something to consider. The rooftop amenity space, I think that's a nice feature. I'm thinking it might be a bit, yeah, maybe there could be some more shade integrated into that. I don't know if I didn't see in the plan if it might get a bit hot in the summer there. So if there's some way to incorporate some shade, whether it's through some sort of structure or tree in a planter. The dog run, I think Hector had a comment about wondering if it was really necessary. I guess you kind of know what the market's like and what the dog owners are demanding, but yeah, I guess if it's too small and it's a building with 126 units, it might not. Yeah, I wonder how well that will function with that many people potentially having dogs. And I guess people wanting to take their dogs for a walk will probably go into a park or around downtown, so it might become mainly used as a washroom for the dogs. So could potentially have some issues there with the artificial turf in that there's nothing really to absorb or break down like the urine, so it's unless it's like frequently flushed out with water, it's gonna probably get pretty stinky in there. So I guess maybe if the dog run wasn't necessary, maybe that could be a location for the smoking area instead of in the plaza. I don't know, something to think about. And yeah, if the dog run is there, the fencing and black chain link is definitely a lot better than just galvanized chain link, but maybe since it's such a downtown location, a higher finish of fence would be appropriate there. And yeah, that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hillary?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to the panel for the comments. I agree that the colors are a little bit too dark, and was hoping for a little bit more differentiation. It does look very linear. The dark rooftop, I wondered if that was like a light color, if it might look less imposing against the skyline, and just really trying to think of how we can make this building look like an inviting and like interesting piece, just because of how visible it is from so many different angles in Nanaimo, and it really is a feature building. I remember an older form of the building had, at least on the one side, like tapered angled balconies, and that was at least a sort of like interesting kind of look. And yeah, to the point of like, we do get a lot of the white gray with like the wood feature look, and sort of the white columns. I wonder if that was more of like an interesting color. I think that's part of the success of the 91 Chapel building, like, because it does have some brighter features on that building. Maybe breaking up the 6 stories with like, you know, one color on some of the bottom floors and then like lightening towards the top, so that so that it doesn't it's not so imposing at the top. And then, you know, there's a lot of like seabirds who are like doing their thing on the roof, so if you have a dark colored roof, it might not age that well. And with the townhouses all being the exact same color, I wonder if it'd be kind of more interesting to alternate them or give them a little bit of differentiation between them. But I think the connection to the street is nice. I like the landscaping look, and I think the pedestrian access is really important. The benches and trees look lovely, and yeah, the connection to the crosswalk I think is well thought out, and the water feature sounds interesting and good use of the site grade. So yeah, hoping we can just kind of give it a little bit more character, and then this is fantastic density for our downtown that our businesses will really benefit from. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hillary. I think that's got everybody. Yeah. Okay, so for my comments, first of all, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very thorough, and it was good to see this project at least come back. Anyway, I was kind of wondering, every time I walk past that garage, I keep wondering when's that building going to be built. So anyway, it's good to see a plan still on the table for it. We did spend a long time on the previous iteration of this, I kind of recall. And I just, I can't quite figure out what exactly changed with the building, but I think I had different memories of it. But anyway, I have to, most of my comments are exactly the same as you're hearing here over and over again. And first of all is with the form and character. I think you've got a building that is extremely visible. It's not hidden by malls or businesses. It's not hidden by trees on the edge of the city somewhere. It's up there on that prominent hill. And so I think it really needs to be, have a form and character that at least is going to be a little bit more, well, I'll use Nathan's term, iconic, I guess. Not that it has to be some sort of masterpiece of architecture in the sense of the Guggenheim or something. I don't think we're asking for that. But my take on that, on the form and character, is that it's very regimented. It's very boring. And I think it could be livened up in so many different ways. And I think you've heard this evening quite a few comments on and ideas on maybe how to do that. I'm not an architect either, but I look at that building and my first view is what Hillary had pointed out, the dark line along the top, the parapet is so dark. And then on the Chapel Street facade, you have that dark parapet again above your retail or live work sites. And that's what I look at right away. Those dark lines seem to just weigh the building down and nothing else is happening. It's just all repeated and regimented. And so, but I think it's a big building. I think you've got to do something that kind of downplays that a bit, breaks it up a little bit, so it doesn't look like just a big wall's been built up on top of that hill. And I think that's been one concern that's been really expressed here a lot. Equally on the other side with the townhouses, they're along a little quiet street. Skinner Street's kind of like an alley. It's a weird little street. So I think you're going to have to work on the character of those buildings as well, just to sort of spruce up that street. I think this development is going to do a lot for that street, turn it in, from a laneway to a little more remarkable street. So you've got potential there to do something really unique and interesting with that as well. And I'd also concur with the staff on doing something with the roofs, because of the townhomes, because anybody looking down is going to see a rooftop that's not that interesting. So either a green roof or a patio deck or something that will just make those roofs look a little bit better. My other concern is that north end. In the last iteration of this project, we talked a lot about that little plaza. And as Kevin recalled, I think you had either a retail unit or something, or I think your amenity space in that corner. I have a real problem with, first of all, residential balconies overlooking that. I think you're going to find anybody living in those units may be disturbed by a lot of activity in that park at night and all times of the day. Where those streets converge is it's very quiet because of all the one ways. I walk up there a lot, and it's actually a street that's very, right now at least, very conducive to people just sort of wandering and jaywalking and cutting across, cutting over to Gina's from the courthouse or something. So I think you have an opportunity there to play with that little park. You basically have a flat iron building, and any city I've been in have a flat iron building with that sort of pointed end to the building facing a little park. We've done some really neat things. I think of Paris, there'd be a little cafe there with some trees and you could sit under there and, or just a little park or something. I think you've got an opportunity for, really neat little space there. I like what your landscape designer's done with sort of the crosswalk and pavings and benches and so on. But I think you need to animate that a bit more with the building. So I think Kevin's idea of having a retail space, whether it's a cafe or even a shop that people are going into, will really help that space, even if you have a few apartments above that. And I hadn't noticed the smoking area being there. I think that's a real problem too. If it's kind of a public park where people want to enjoy themselves. And anybody in the upper floors above that, they're going to get all the pot smoke and the cigarette smoke into their units immediately. It just rises straight up. I live on a 4th floor in an apartment building, and anybody smokes under there, it's like it's in your room. So you may have to find another location for that if you're required to have it. So those would be, I think those are my main concerns, and I think they've been really expressed well by everybody in the panel so far. And I think you've got an opportunity to make a really interesting building up there. It doesn't mean a whole rework, it just means some tweaking, particularly on the exterior with your choice of colors, material, textures, as Kevin suggested. So there's lots of room there for improvement to make that just a really, really great building that we look forward to seeing on the hilltop. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. There was one thing I forgot to add is if that north area does get changed to include a rental unit or something, and the whole patio area changes, the smoking area and the dog walk area could be moved to the rear, what is the rear amenity space, and
Around
change
the
that.
south end of the building.
Yeah, the south end of the building. And also in that front north corner, there's a great opportunity to add a piece of public art that relates to the downtown heritage of Nanaimo. So I think it's a great opportunity to add that in that front corner somewhere.
Yeah, but that's probably, that may not be is that the owner's responsibility to do the art? Yeah, I think it's a great spot, but the city also has a public art program that maybe can look at that.
Yeah, but this is on private property, and I believe it's in the guidelines that a piece of art that relates to the heritage of the site of the area gets included. And
there is a cash requirement of the developer to contribute to public art, but it is not our responsibility to source, identify, or plan for.
Okay.
And so that cash contributions are a requirement, and we're happy to work with the city when we get to that state, but it is not up to us at the end of the day.
That would actually be,
I just think it's a beautiful corner to provide a piece of art on that corner to highlight that corner, because it comes to that prow on that corner, and there you have a great opportunity to highlight and feature that corner and feature the building. So I think you want to I would like to see you investigate that to provide a piece of art on that corner.
Well, I think that's a great idea, and it's something that I'm on a committee for public art, and one of the things we want to look at is how developers can actually contribute monetarily, and then the city look after the cultural department and the city look after sourcing that sort of thing, because I think in some ways it's a lot to ask a builder too. But anyway, we can add that as a recommendation if you would like. At some point it be looked at. Okay, so I have lots of notes here, and we'll just sort of round up and see what we have for recommendations for these. I think top, of course, is considering ways to improve the outward form and character of the building. And I'm just trying to think of how best to phrase this. I've heard lots of different comments and suggestions, but I don't know that it's helpful to put all those in. I think instead we need something just a little bit more general, such as consider adding texture, color, or materials that break up the uniformity and make the building and form and character more iconic and suitable to the location. So I'm just wondering if that would cover a lot of the comments that we've had today, rather than sort of pick through them, talk about balconies and that kind of thing. So it may be that something in the balconies are changed, or the color in between, or whatever. It's up to the architects to kind of come up with that. And I don't know under that if Kevin, you still want to make a suggestion that you consider a solid base for the building, or just leave that as kind of covered under that first recommendation.
I like the idea of making a solid base to the building, unless anybody else objects to it. I think a building of that mass should have a solid base to the building of a material like brick or stone to make sure that it's looking like it's standing on a solid foundation.
I'd say if it was a taller building, I'm not that much in favor. I don't know about anybody else want to have a recommendation that the building have a solid base.
No, I think the Chapel Street side with the horizontal line actually is quite strong. So I think I don't see the need for the base. The plinthness does happen on Skinner Street a bit with the base of the parkade, and so I think not.
Anybody else?
I will leave it to the architect. Yeah.
Leave it to the architects.
Yeah.
So.
I'll remove that recommendation then.
Okay. Number 2, townhomes could be further enhanced through materials or color and more durable materials. Does that sound good?
We add authentic material.
Okay, more durable and authentic. And
Sorry, maybe like the word to have some variation as well, just to clarify. I think that was a good comment.
Variation through a variation of materials, color, and more durable and authentic materials. Consider townhomes. Consider adding green roofs, consider the appearance of the townhome roofs to improve. Consider townhome rooftops. Consider green roof for the. Yeah.
We have a staff recommendation that's already noted about the roof, so we will need to respond to that anyway.
Yes. Well, I think we like to have them in as our recommendation as well,
Okay.
and they're sort of strongly felt. So.
Understood. Yeah. Okay.
Consider adding a green roof to the townhomes or other roofing option to improve appearance from above. And then the north end, consider creating a retail unit on the ground floor of the north corner of the building and to better animate the corner plaza. And does anybody else want anything else regarding the north end?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I guess consider a different location for the smoking area, or would that be part of the north end or a different one?
Yeah. I think I have that somewhere further down, but I'll put it right there. And Nathan, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just as per page 43 of the design guidelines, that corner is pointed out as a potential landmark. So I don't think it's a programmatic issue, honestly. I think it's just a form issue, which the residential can handle that, but leave that to the architect. But definitely reference to the design guidelines, page 43, potential landmark.
Okay, consider to enhance the north corner as a potential landmark as per the city guidelines. Okay. Now, Nathan, you brought up something about the splitting the building and raising one side of it. Do you want that, make that as a recommendation? Or is that just all part of the sort of form and character that needs to be thought about?
I think it could be phrased as gray units connection to the street, perhaps. And my suggestion was you could split the building into foyer and raise, looking from the Chapel Street side, raise the whole building up to suit the grades. Obviously, there's a firewall and you can't have stairs going through that. You can have a ramp, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily has to be in there, but just the notion that the units should be better addressed to grades on that section of the building on Chapel Street. And let the architects decide what to do with that.
Of the units on Chapel Street. So consider ways to better address the grade of the units on Chapel Street. Is that Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we've had some concern about the separation between the two buildings, the current building and the one and this new building. So there was a number of things, some to do with wayfinding, safety, security, lighting. So consider ways to ensure security, wayfinding, and good lighting along the pedestrian corridor on the south end. And consider the necessity of the small dog park.
Oh,
We want to put that in.
for this recommendation about the south end, maybe also something about like natural surveillance or sight lines from, I guess it would be nice to see some windows on the south, like something that provides some views or natural surveillance of that south walkway from the building itself.
Well, we could have consider ways to ensure security by adding windows on the south side, wayfinding, and good lighting along that pedestrian corridor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Do we want a recommendation regarding the dog park? Or just leave that?
I mean, it's up to the developer if they think their potential clients would want that, but maybe like, I guess I had some concerns about the materials, like the fencing and the surfacing, potentially not functioning that well in the long term for this location for dog use.
Right. So would you suggest a recommendation or not?
Is the dog area required? I know the smoking one is, but Greg, can you answer that?
It's something we are putting into all of our new rental projects. We find it is very well used and adds sort of an easier means for residents to let their dogs out for a bathroom break, sort of at 10 o'clock at night. That's when I have to take my dog out, for example, as opposed to going for a longer walk for so we do find it is a highly desired amenity, and it is a standard part of our package that we offer now.
Yeah, well, I would recommend that because in all likelihood, the smoking area is going to be moved. And the only area it really could be moved to is the southwest corner, where the amenity space is, which I don't think that amenity space would be used very often.
The amenity space being the gym?
The
outdoor amenities.
And gyms are
on the
our most
Skinner
popular amenities.
On the south corner on Skinner Street. There's an outdoor amenity space there.
The outdoor amenity, okay.
And I think that might be the location for your smoking area, and whether, excuse me, and whether or not there's enough room there to also incorporate a dog space there. But you're only a block away from the waterfront, and I think for the dogs, I would think. I would probably think you might want to consider eliminating the dog area.
Like I say, it's property management is insistent that it is something we do need to provide. It is something that is our tenants and residents demand. So we have to provide it somewhere. We'll look at locations, we'll look at options, we'll look at smoking. This is me not saying that we're not going to look at it. This is just we do have to provide something.
Well, hopefully there's room in that South Skinner corner there where there's you provided an amenity space, which I don't think will be used a lot. I think if you converted that to your smoking area and also your dog area, if there's enough room to have your dog walk area there, hopefully that can work out. But that's what I would recommend.
Okay, and I think we can just say consider relocating the dog park and ensuring materials used such as fencing are durable.
I guess the fencing was more for appearance, just, in a downtown core, maybe not chain link, but something better than that. My comment about the synthetic turf, I guess that's just a maintenance issue if they need to flush it with water or put irrigation on it to make sure it stays clean. But so I guess for me, it would be mainly the fence, like having a higher quality fence for.
Okay, so consider relocating the dog park and ensuring materials such as fencing is appropriate and ground material is durable.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's see. Oh, we had the bike racks. I'm surprised, Jonathan, you did not comment on the bike racks.
Oh, they looked good in the plan. Like I guess I didn't actually see which rack was spec'd, but it looked like the good kind.
We had one suggestion that ensure that there's enough room for larger bikes on the bike rack in that space, which I think is a good point to make. And consider some texture on the retaining walls along Chapel Street. Jonathan, that was one of yours. And consider adding some shaded areas to the rooftop amenity space.
Could I add a comment about the walls on Chapel Street?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so the texture, it's a thing, and it relates back to Kevin's idea of the plinth, which is a nice plinth. So but there's something about that. There's a lot of wall there, and texturing. You can either make it concrete beautiful, with beautiful form ties, and or potentially let light into the carport. You have a garage. You have a very unique opportunity to get natural light and air into the garage, or the storage garage below on both sides of the townhouses. That might be a nice way to go. Just to add some of the texture elements to that wall. So that would be a comment. But natural light into the parkade.
Okay, we were talking about Chapel Street. How did we get to the parkade?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Skinner. My bad. Skinner.
Okay, do you want to make that a recommendation and tell me what that was now?
Okay, so it was the walls for the parkade on Skinner.
So consider adding texture to those walls?
I would prefer just to refer to light getting to the parkade to provide texture, some sort of articulation of those walls. Would be a nicer way to approach the problem of blank walls into a parkade. So natural light into the parkade from Skinner on both sides of the townhomes. Does that sound right?
No, because I don't understand what you're trying to how you get natural light through there. Are you asking for some fenestration or?
Oh yes.
Okay. So consider some fenestration on the concrete wall?
Yes.
So, add lighting to the parkade off Skinner Street. Okay, that makes a little more sense. Okay, so I've got 14 recommendations. I'll just kind of go through them. I might not read them completely, but just let me know what you think of these, panel. So number 1, consider adding texture, color, or materials that break up the uniformity and make the building form and character more iconic and suitable to its location. Townhomes could be further enhanced through a variation of materials, color, and more durable and authentic materials. Consider adding a green roof to the townhomes or other roofing materials to improve the appearance from above. Consider recreating retail unit on the ground floor of the north corner of the building to better animate the corner plaza. Consider ways to enhance the north corner as a potential landmark as per the city guidelines. Consider a different location for the smoking area. Consider ways to better address the grade of the units on Chapel Street. Consider ways to ensure security by adding windows on the south side, wayfinding, and good lighting along the pedestrian corridor on the south end. Consider relocating the smoking area away from the North Plaza. Consider relocating, did I already do the smoking area? I did too. Okay. One less recommendation. Consider relocating the dog park and ensuring materials used such as fencing is appropriate and ground material is durable. Number 10, consider some texture on the retaining walls along Chapel Street. 11, consider adding fenestration on the concrete walls to let light into the parkade on Skinner Street. Consider adding some shaded areas to the rooftop amenity space. Ensure there is enough room for larger bikes on the bike racks. Did I miss anything? No? Okay. And we're not dealing with any variances tonight, so if we can have a motion to accept the proposal as presented with those recommendations. Somebody want to make a motion? Kevin, seconder. Nathan, all in favor? Okay, got everybody in favor? Great. Well, thank you for your time this evening and good luck with that project. We look forward to seeing
I just want to thank everyone for their time. I hear your comments. We will go back to the team here and for lack of a better term, we're going to punch up how the building appears. Didn't sound like there were concerns about massing, but rather the aesthetics. And I'm pretty sure we can address that with Glenn and the team at DHK and the landscape architects. Everybody's feedback is gratefully appreciated. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Okay, and we don't. Oh yes, did you want to say something? Oh, you're just waving goodbye. Okay. All right. So I don't think we don't have any other business this evening. So if I can have a motion to adjourn. Kevin, again, you're doing all the motions tonight, and seconder. Let's have Harry and all in favor. I don't think anybody's against that one. Okay, great. Good night, all. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.